Hey everyone, I thought I would do a very informal video this week showing you what's in bloom, what I'm cutting, and me making some bouquets for the country store. It's Labor Day weekend, so from a retail perspective, some people are going to parties and going to be wanting some flowers. I've got a local flower farmer who also wants to buy some stems from me, and this morning I had the chance to finally go back to the co-op, which was awesome because I haven't been to the co-op in nearly 2 months. So it's great to see everyone. It was great to have a car full of flowers and deliver all of those flowers. So I'm pretty excited that I had a chance to do that. Now, that being said, the field is still in full bloom. There is so much color, and I can't tell you what a joy it is to be in this field, especially this row over here. If I just stop, I can hear all of the pollinators, I can see all the butterflies, the moths, the bees, and it's just such a great place to be in. Now, this is actually a really good week for us. So for those of you who don't know, my daughter was recently diagnosed with cancer. We've already started chemotherapy, and our chemotherapy is a total of 40 weeks, but on certain weeks she has what I call the heavy hitting chemo, which is the chemo that makes you nauseous. It has a lot of side effects. It's the bad chemo. And then on 2 other of those weeks, so it's like a 3-week cycle, 2 of those other weeks, we have a easier hitting chemo. Still has side effects, but not necessarily the nausea. And so we are on the 3rd week of that 3-week cycle, which means that her blood counts are coming back up. She really shouldn't be feeling the side effects from Monday's chemotherapy, and basically this is like her best week. So she's actually back at school. We've been able to do some house stuff. I've been able to catch up on work during this slower week, and of course in the evenings spend some time out here. So without further ado, let's do a little bit of harvesting for tomorrow's bouquets. We got a severe unexpected thunderstorm. The wind gusts were insane. I thought one of the trees was going to fall by our house. Electricity kind of went in and out. So I knew that the cosmos were probably going to be done for, which they are over here. And that's totally fine. I was trying to save some for seed, but I think I've got a couple that are already setting seed that I'll save. And then eventually I'm just going to mow this all down, probably not anytime within the next week after my in-laws come and we have a little bit of relief for help. I'll take care of that. So that's just going to be a little bit of a mess for now, which is totally fine. But luckily for the most part, everything survived pretty well. I've learned that despite my best efforts to fight it, net the dahlias. The netted dahlias have done the best out of all the dahlias that I've had. Of course, I've had not netted dahlias and they still survive, but they get really, really wonky. So going forward, I am going to net the dahlias. It just makes life a lot easier, especially here in the Northeast where we get a lot of these unpredicted severe thunderstorms. The zinnias also seem to be doing pretty well. I would say in general, everything did really well. And one thing that I have been really thinking about hard this year is just how does intercropping and having things support each other contribute to this not needing to net. And as you can see, the ageratum, as well as some of the other stuff that's in this row, has done really, really well. I've also noticed that when I plant things very densely together, like we're talking about taking probably about half the space of what is already recommended for intensive farming, things like the marigold in this aisle. And if you remember, this was the bells of Ireland in the spring. I did not net any of these, and these have been doing pretty well in windstorm events. And I think it's because they're just so densely planted together. So overall, totally fine with what happened over here. The flower farmer who's picking up tomorrow was joking with me last night. Let me know if you still have anything left after the storm because it was that crazy. So I'm feeling pretty lucky that we made out good. But right now we're gonna go make some bouquets. All right, so I got my bucket of flowers that we harvested yesterday. These were placed outside because a majority of these flowers do not like the cold. We're talking about celosia, cosmos, zinnias. I mean, you can put them into the refrigerator, but it's just one of those things where sometimes I feel like you're taking a bigger risk than you are getting a benefit, especially if your fridge isn't as tightly controlled from a temperature perspective. Now, one thing I did pull out of my cooler are these Lisianthus. I only have 4 stems left. I grew 2 varieties. This one is Arena and I grew Chateau. And so when both of these were coming into bloom, I had initially said, I'm not growing Arena next year. They look nice, but just not as impressive as Chateau, which is a bit more roughly, a bit more sophisticated looking. I learned when I visited Farmer Bailey's that Chateau is one of those newer varieties. It's French and it doesn't ship well because of how many ruffled not feathers, how many ruffled petals it has. So as a result, I felt a little bit more like, oh, next year I'm going to grow more of these Chateaus and maybe celeb varieties. But I've come to realize that there is a place for Arena in my field. And so again, these are grown outside without any tunnel protection. And these are like, I have so much gratitude towards these Lisianthus, believe it or not, because these have been blooming probably for about a month's window. They not only are tall, but they have multiple buds per stem. And what that meant was that allowed me a very, very generous harvesting window. So for example, I would say that these really started coming into their prime in early August. And that was like at the height and at the thick of when we were going back and forth to Philly for diagnosis. I just let these go outside because what I ended up doing was I ended up snipping one of the first buds or 2 buds. And then there were still more that were on the stem for it to bloom. And so something just fell for it to bloom. So as a result, I was still able to get usable stems, and these really bulked up my retail bouquets at a time when I actually didn't have much other stuff blooming, which was anticipated, but they made beautiful bouquets on their own. So I have 4 stems left, and I do plan on growing this again next year. So what we're going to do is we're going to make 4 bouquets. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how I've maintained my sales. What did my sales even look like over the past month when things just came to a screeching halt? And so let's define what screeching halt is. Screeching halt is I'm obviously not spending as much outside doing maintenance in the field, but I'm really prioritizing the time that I'm out there, either just enjoying the flowers or making wrap bouquets for this retail outlet that I sell at. Now, if you recall, I've been selling at this retail outlet since last year. And to be honest, it wasn't necessarily the best outlet for me in the sense that like, yes, there were sales, but the amount of traffic that went to that store and the amount of sales that I got from that store didn't feel like that it was aligned in terms of my expectation. So in other words, sales were a lot lower than what I would have expected given the type of traffic that was going to that country store. And this country store is on a farm that is an educational farm. So they do a lot of tours, but they also have something called baby goat milk feeding, which is really genius. So they have these baby goats. They're super, super cute. And basically, when they're still babies, they let kids come and feed the goats for a price, right? So people are paying to do this. And so what ends up happening is every single time they have one of these goat feeding sessions, I come and like parking is so hard to get. And it's just like, it's so popular. So I started realizing that even though there's a lot of traffic coming from things like that, people who are coming for that, especially if they're traveling from like the city, they're not necessarily there to buy something. They're there for the experience of the goat feeding session. So in order for me to get sales that I wanted at this place, I would have to drive sales to the store. So I think that there is this common misperception that, oh, when you partner with a store, you're relying on them to generate the traffic. And yes, that is true in a lot of cases, but I've come to realize that we have the power to control the type of traffic that is going to the store and even the volume of traffic. So what did I do? Some of you joined my Double Your Facebook Challenge, which I launched in July. I ended up closing that challenge pretty quickly because we got like close to 100 people who joined, and I wanted it to be just a smaller list to test. And I would say that it went really well. I mean, I had people who emailed me basically within the first week being like, this post that you suggested, which is an about me post, completely blew up. And one person said that she basically had a line out of her farm stand before she was even able to set up on a Saturday morning and basically sold out immediately. So it goes to show you that there is power in marketing and making sure that you are cultivating your own clientele, whether or not it's driving it to a farm stand or to a country store. So I bring this up because that timing of the Facebook challenge was impeccable on my end, because I ended up driving a lot of traffic to the country store, and that traffic continued to visit even though I wasn't actively marketing on Facebook when everything happened with my daughter. So in other words, I was actually selling more bouquets at the country store than I normally would because of the work I had put in the month prior. And it wasn't even a full month. It was about, I would say, like 3 weeks worth. So I was tracking a few days ahead of the challenge just so that I had content to post. But that was really telling to me in terms of just how much impact an extra couple of weeks could have on sales. So I'm going to stop right now because I'm pretty much done with this bouquet. Hold on, let me just put in an extra, what do I want to put in? Because I'm only making 4 bouquets, so actually I think this is good. So yeah, look at this. This is a $20 bouquet. It's just got a bunch of stuff, and it's still got these like summer vibe colors. So yeah, this is going to be good. And except for the cosmos, everything else is pretty much long lasting in here. The zinnias were just harvested, so I would expect them to get a decent week out of them. All right, so I was talking about sales. And so I've started increasing the amount that I bring to the store, which wasn't that much to begin with. Let's be honest. I was only bringing 3 bouquets a day. And so I sell at this country store because it's only open on Thursdays through Sundays. So I'd bring 3 on Thursday and maybe restock on Saturday. And so you can tell like sales at this store weren't great. They were great like on Mother's Day, on certain occasions. It was very hit or miss. It was like sometimes you might get people who are coming for one of their events and are like, yes, like I want to buy flowers. And sometimes it would be crickets. So in other words, when I generated that Facebook traffic going there, I got a lot more consistent sales, and I started bringing 4 bouquets at a time. So what now it looks like is I bring bouquets on Thursday morning, and I'm refreshing by Friday afternoon at the latest. And sometimes I'm refreshing again on Saturday so that they have enough for Sunday. So I've practically doubled the amount of sales, sometimes triple the amount of sales depending on the week. So that's really exciting. And that was a really, it made life a lot easier, obviously, when we were going back and forth to Philly, and I didn't really have to worry too much about trying to drum up trying to drum up marketing to get people to go to the store. In other words, I'd done my homework for cultivating that traffic, and then I was able to reap the benefits of that work that I did at a time when I really didn't have the time to spend on marketing. All right, so if we talk about just numbers, I did a rough ballpark of what I sold over the past month. And so I sold close to actually $1,000. And if we break that down, that $1,000 is broken down into about 60% from the country store, so what we just talked about, 30% from a CSA that I have, a very, very small CSA, mind you. This is a CSA that is a premium vase arrangement CSA. So it's $30. People know that they're getting a deal because I'm using it as practice for me to be able to make arrangements, but it is every month, once a month. And this past month, I actually asked if we could pull it up. And so if people couldn't make it, then I had an alternative date. So it's been really flexible for me in that regard to be able to offer the CSA essentially when it's good for me. And my customers know the situation that's happening. And they were all super understanding and accommodating to change the date. So the CSA was about 30%. And then the other 10% was just random wholesale that came to me. So I really haven't gone anywhere except for the country store. The CSA comes to pick up from me, and then about 10% goes to a local Chick-fil-A that has my flowers, and that is done through a florist who found me and is relatively local to me, but provides flowers for our local Chick-fil-A. So between all of that, if I don't count the cooperative that I went to this past Wednesday, where we did like close to $500 worth of wholesale, like we're at almost $1,000 just through these kind of like sleepy channels, as I'll call it, because I didn't really have to do much to cultivate it. And I'm talking about this because it is really like, I think that there's a huge advantage that people have once they have a couple of years under their belt and they've done that homework to cultivate that following. And this is what the rewards look like. Now, I will say that just because you do your marketing for a couple of weeks, it doesn't mean that you're going to consistently get people to come. Like, marketing is this continuous effort, but it does buy you a bit of time. And, you know, I could have been in a situation where, which is totally fine, me just going out and looking at the flowers and cutting them and hoping that someone would sell or someone would come and buy them at the country store. But I didn't have to kind of like hope and use hope as a strategy. Instead, I knew that when I was bringing flowers over there, that they were going to sell. And I would say that if I didn't have that confidence, I probably wouldn't have made flowers, because like it's actually enjoyable to make bouquets. But I do think that there would probably be some level of frustration too, in terms of I'm spending all this time, it's not really amounting to much, and so therefore I'm just not going to do it. So even though flower farming now definitely feels like it's for me, it's for therapy, it's not about the numbers, like there is still a certain level of satisfaction and pride that you have when you are able to sell your flowers, when people still are posting photos of how much they're enjoying your flowers, right? I think that that's something that you also can't put a price tag on in terms of the pride it brings. So it's something that I definitely want to continue doing. And I will also say that because I've now been deliberately practicing a lot more making bouquets, I feel like I am actually getting better at making bouquets. And one great example is the fact that I would never have been able to have talked while making bouquets even like 4 months ago. So I really took it upon myself to get better at making bouquets and doing it in a way that could feel second nature. And I feel like I'm actually now at a point where it does feel like that it is a bit more second nature. So that's always really exciting to feel like you've leveled up in a in a skill that you weren't as good as before. All right, so I've actually got 3 full bouquets. I'm going to go get, you know what? I'm actually probably just going to do, no, I'm going to go get a couple of stems of lilies in the refrigerator, and then we're going to build out the rest of the bouquets. I was trying to decide, do I want to make a full extra one or do I want to just do 3? I want to bring 4 today, so I'm going to go get the lilies in the fridge. So on my way to the cooler, I was like, let me go grab some more cosmos since they're already falling on the ground anyway. And I came back with all of this. So these are rose lilies that are coming in again. Rose lilies do really well for me, both wholesale and retail. And part of it is because when you have multiple of these buds open, they get really, really big and they just look so amazing. But I actually want to talk about a couple of other flowers that I haven't had a chance to talk to. These are callas. I harvested every single stem I could of callas for yesterday's market. It's amazing what a little bit of rain can do for you because I did not see these 2 yesterday. But essentially I sold every single stem of calla lily that I could harvest. No one else is growing these, even though these are really easy to find wholesale at reasonable prices. Calla lilies ship really well. So if you're going to sell wholesale, you have to make sure you're selling it to florists who want local versus they're just looking for something specialty that they can't get from a wholesaler. These actually end up shipping really well. But if you happen to get a florist who wants these local and maybe in a certain color, these last for a really long time. So these are really, really awesome. I got another zinnia. This one is Alpenglow from the Florette series. And this is a single first stem, not pinched. So in my last video, I talked about just how the Florette zinnias have been doing from a control test group. I had tested seeds that were soaked in a fish fertilizer, so Neptune's Harvest in this case, and then I had done a control group of not soaking anything, and it didn't impact germination rate, but it's really been impacting the vigor and the productivity of these zinnias. So if you're a Patreon member, make sure you go to my article because I have some pictures and more in-depth, what do you call it, like an article about just my experience with that. More marigolds. This is white swan I showed earlier. The nice thing about marigolds is that these will open up over time, so it's a really great vase life as well as good like foliage here. And then some couple more cosmos, dahlias. But let's talk a little bit about cosmos because cosmos have been a bit of the unsung hero this year in my field. And even though I didn't get a chance to harvest the majority of them because they were just blooming at a time when when we couldn't do anything with them and we're going back and forth to the hospital, they have been amazing when it comes to making mixed bouquets and making a bouquet feel more full. I think after the learnings from this year, I'm not going to be growing the single variety. This is actually cupcake. So cupcake sometimes has roughly layers, but most of them didn't. I will, however, continue to be growing double click. Double click cranberry is awesome. And if you noticed when I did my video of the cosmos, they had really strong, long, sturdy stems. And I think that most people, even at my co-op, were surprised to see how great they looked. So I'm definitely going to be growing more of these this next year. The seed for cosmos is so cheap. You direct seed it that if you only get a few stems from a bigger area, but it creates this fill and foliage in a way that other flowers can't have, I think it's actually really worth having the space. So with all of that, let's actually start building our last bouquet. And so maybe this time I'll actually explain what I'm doing. So I'm starting off with the marigold just because it has a lot more fill and structure here. You'll notice that in the other bouquets, I actually started with the sea holly and then with like a celosia, but now I'm going to put in this giant tree of a celosia. But I do love it. It looks really, really nice. It's so thick. So I'm actually going to cut it right now because it's hanging off. Then I would probably put something more of a focal here. So a rose lily. And I am now trying, it's kind of hard to do the spiral method with this. But I am now trying to do more of that spiral method and looking for holes. I am taking a lot of what I learned when I went to Crane's garden and he was showing me how he made bouquets and how he was filling the gaps in his bouquets. That was actually really, really helpful tutorial for me. So now I'm just putting Lisianthus here. Put another whimsical cosmos in the middle. Okay. And so now we actually have 3 cosmos in this bucket. So this is going to be fun. Okay. Now we're going to start putting in some more focals in here. So we got a zinnia. We've got this petite Jowie Winnie. Look at that. Actually, this might be intrigue. I'm not even sure what it is, but I'm really liking these more petite type of dahlias because I have other focals so they don't overwhelm. Okay. Now, seeing a gap over here in terms of spike. Okay. So now we're going to do another focal over here. So you can see I am really trying to layer. Another zinnia over here. Wow, this one might actually be done soon. All right, and then we're going to do a calla over here. Look at that. This, I would buy this for sure. $20 is a steal. And that's the other thing, right? Like these really should be priced at $25. I'm totally okay with pricing them at $20. I think I could get away with 25. I do think that 20 makes it more likely that people are going to come and buy multiples and also just like buy more frequently. But look, I can make a profit off $20. I think more people can enjoy them at a $20 versus $25 price point. So good enough for me. And because this one looks so good, I'm actually going to edit this one and put in the rest of the stems over here, because even though this one has a lot of blooms, I did notice when I put it in the bucket that it was a little bit crowded. And part of it is just because of where I had put the rubber band. But once I add these couple over here, it's actually going to feel like it fills out a little bit more. And this one over here. Yeah, look at that. Wow. Yeah, these are a really great deal for $20. But again, like as you experience some life events and you just want to be in the presence of flowers, sell a few, you care less about just how much profit you're getting off of it. Like I'm just happy that I'm able to actually move these stems. Here, we'll even add this last one since I have extra. And so like you can see the way I'm holding it, there is a bit of a spiral in place. So it's kind of funny because I had been intentional about practicing that for the last few months. And now it feels like it's becoming a little bit more second nature. So look at that. So now we're going to wrap these and then eventually I'm going to drop off at the store. Got my business cards, got my paper. One thing that I've really started going towards this year for wrap bouquets for the country store is doing my own sheets. So this comes in a roll. Eventually I'm going to buy my own 18 by 18, but for now it's just cutting my own sheets. And the reason is because a pre-made sleeve I feel sometimes fits a little too snugly and doesn't actually showcase how great the flowers look. And of course I somehow only brought 3 pieces, but that's okay. Business cards made from Canva, really easy to make. The front looks like this. It has my information, and I had made the back specifically blank because sometimes I would get a la carte orders that would say, can you please add a note? So I would say you can add a note that fits this size that I'm happy to write on for you. It restricts the amount of words that people typically are going to give you. Sometimes I get like a letter and I'm like, I can't write all of this on something. So I need to order more of these. I think next time I might actually take this out and put a little bit more vase life instructions, but I do think putting a business card on these bouquets is helpful, especially in a retail store setting where I don't have full control of who's coming to my customers. I am driving a lot of them to the store, but there are also some natural traffic folks who buy the bouquets, and I want to know who they come from. So let me just show you how I wrap these. So I have these folded in triangles like a mountain. So now we're going to take our first bouquet and we're just going to lay this down over here, and it's just super, super easy. So I've now just folded this up. Take a stapler. You can get like a better stapler that is going to be longer and go deeper, but a regular stapler works. And then over here, I actually just fold over the flap And then I put a business card. Now, if you're selling from your own stand or like a CSA, like I'm not gonna put the business card on here because they obviously know who I am. But sometimes people are gifting these, so it is nice to have that touch. All right. It also just makes it look a little bit more professional too. All right, so here. Two, last one over here. Whoopsies. This will dry out, so I'm not too concerned about it being wet. Guys, I am so proud to have stock right now. I was expecting to have it more in September, but I can literally smell how good the stock is, even though it's just one stem from this bouquet, and it's got this like clovey, sweet smell that's really hard to describe. So let me go get another piece of paper. Be right back. Funny story, I'd actually cut this, just forgot to bring it, and I think in the past I would have been like, oh, that's so inefficient. And now I'm like, whatever. All right, so this one's the last one. Shake, shake. Damn, look at this one. Awesome. I think these will go really quickly, which means I need to fill up again tomorrow. So I had some things that I didn't cut, like ageratum. I actually try to use as few rose lilies as possible because those are all going to that flower farmer who wanted some extra blooms. But look at that, it looks so good. So let me show you what these look like, fully wrapped in the bucket. You know what's popping into my head right now? If you follow Nicole from Flower Hill Farm, she goes, wow. Like, that's exactly what I want to say right now. Wow. The colors are awesome. It feels like you're getting your last bit of summer before Labor Day is over, and there's just so much good deliciousness in here. And this bouquet is so different from the ones that I've had before. And you know what, now that I'm looking at these bouquets, like I wasn't necessarily a fan of the Dusty Rose Celosia from Floret before, but these are looking so good, especially with the Selway series and this marigold. So again, this is White Swan Marigold. It's coming more like a creamy yellow, but man, I think that these colors are looking really, really good. And there's one flower I didn't actually really get a chance to talk too much about, and it is, if I could find it, where is it? It's this one over here. It's the aster, and I've had very bad luck growing aster, so I thought I'd try again. Bad luck again this year, but I really do love it. It's got multiple heads per stem. It's got like a fluffy look, and so it's something I might try again next year and experiment with. But yeah, this is what these bouquets look like.